In my last video, I ran into some trouble with my pathfinding algorithm when I switched from a flat plane to a geometric mesh, and I also had some issues when I was pathfinding with a lot of units. And in this video, I'll show you how I dealt with those issues, so let's go. I got burned out from working on pathfinding for so long, so I decided to work on some superficial features. So I scaled up the terrain to be a more realistic map size. I also went ahead and I added seeding and some customization sliders to these trees so I could customize them the same way that I'm able to customize the terrain. I also went ahead and added some very basic water. My vision for the water was to kind of make Wind Waker-esque water, but I didn't want to convert to the lightweight render pipeline in order to use shader graphs to make it, so I'll probably see if I can hand make it in code, but that's way off in the future. After dealing with some edge cases that were happening when I was running into the mountains, and also fixing some bugs that I just did not realize I had that were causing a majority of the issues, I was able to have a single unit pathfind all the way across the map successfully. The next logical step was to try the same thing but with a whole bunch of units, and I had a lot of issues with that at first. It doesn't look too bad with this density of units because there's not a whole lot of units very close to each other, but as soon as I start to scale this up and make them traverse some trickier terrain, it gets really bad, and I'll show you here in a sec. So already we can see that if we increase the number of units just a little bit, the aggregate separation force starts to push units on the outside off into obstacles like trees where they get off of the main pathfinding flow field and then they get stuck, forever. So something that is a really stupid fix that I simply hadn't thought of is that whenever you contact an obstacle, it just pushes you away from it. It just resets your position and shoves you back. And that looks really ugly, but as you can see, my units aren't getting stuck in the trees anymore, so that's a plus. In order to make that repulsion force look less janky, I turned it into a steering behavior because steering behaviors are a lot smoother. They take into account all of these different forces and try to limit the maximum acceleration. So as you can see, they're not bouncing around and teleporting around like they were before. However, they are spinning in circles, so I don't know if that's any better. Another issue here is that when your flock is sufficiently large enough, you kind of get this stampede effect where at the tip, there's all of this momentum behind it that the units that are at the front kind of get pushed in by all that momentum, and it takes a little while for them to reset and pathfind. And in the worst case scenarios, units can get shoved into these trees because there's so much momentum with the separation force and with physical collisions pushing them into the obstacles. So I'm going to need to fix that as well. Because I'm really lazy, instead of having this be a coding solution, I just made the trees bigger. And, well, you can see what happened there. For my final working solution, I ended up making the trees larger, changed some of the randomization features so there wasn't a chance for there to be these big gaps in the trees that the tanks could go in between. And I also tweaked the separation force so that the tanks wouldn't, push each other into the trees as strongly as they were before. Unfortunately, when units learn and they're trying to find a new route, they can still get clustered up into big swirling groups like this, but I don't think that that's going to be something I can fix until I go back and completely redo my pathfinding scripts, which I'm not going to do for a long time just because I want to start working on other parts of the game rather than completely tearing out this thing and then building it from scratch. Here is one of the larger tests that I did. I think there were 25 units in this one, and I gave them kind of a complex path to go around. As you can see, the only valid option that they have of getting to the target is going around this little sandy area in the top corner. A few of the units got stuck on that mountain, but most of them managed to find a correct path and make it to the target without getting stuck in a tree or stuck in the ocean or anything. Once my units were able to find their way to the target successfully, I needed some way for them to be able to enter attack positions and not shoot each other. So I implemented this really basic fighting circle where they just try and check for a line of sight. I will probably expand upon it and turn it into a formation or something that's more organized. I decided to do some of the testing for formations on my fire teams. So you have this abstract class that just takes an array of positions and then it scales these positions based on the local coordinates of the fire team object. And so these positions can be defined manually, you can hard code them, or you can have them defined by a function. So you can have some infinitely scalable formation where the more units that you add, the larger the formation gets, but it's still the same shape. This formation is lopsided because the units can't move faster than that white ball, so they're unable to catch up to the position that they actually need to be in. I need to fix that. One last thing that I implemented is something that I feel like not enough RTS games have, is that the speed of the group will actually scale to the slowest moving unit. I hate it in video games where you have infantry units and some sort of fast moving vehicle, and the vehicles will go in ahead, and I want to launch my attack all at the same time. It's especially bad in games like Planetary Annihilation, where I have air units and I accidentally send all the air units in and they just get shot out of the sky by anti-air because they don't have a lot of defenses. So you can also see my infantry units going into the trees here. I need to fix that also. One of the last things I did was I did a stress test with a whole bunch of units to see how my pathfinding algorithm would scale, what the performance would be like. And it worked pretty well. It didn't slow down my computer too much, but I've also got a pretty nice computer. So I'll try it on my laptop and see if it kills everything. I might convert the pathfinding to dots if I don't just completely redo it over very soon, because that might be worth it. I'm sorry that this video is kind of lame. My solutions were more just tweaking stuff than like a really cool programming solution, but I've got a couple of tutorials coming down the pipeline. I've never done a tutorial before, so I'm making them simple tutorials. The first one is this camera that you see here, this RTS camera. I tried to base it off the Total War camera. The next thing is this selection box, being able to select multiple units for like an RTS game. So I hope you guys end up liking that. Anyways, thanks for watching.